When I first got my call to ministry, my biggest concern was for my kids. You see, I had grown up with some of those pastors' kids that give pastors' kids a bad name. So when I started out, I wanted to make sure that I put my family first in ministry. Because we all know when you're volunteering in ministry, or even if you're on staff, there is no such thing as part-time. It is so easy to be eager to impress, hit the ground running, and make an impact that your family gets left behind. So there are a few key things that you can do that I have found in my experience to help balance your family and ministry. The first thing is create healthy boundaries and margin. Make sure you leave time in your schedule for personal growth and time with your family. Because first and foremost, you need to pastor your family first. When you pastor your family first and the kids that you are shepherding come second, then you make sure that your family is a priority. And you set a good example for the families in your church as well. Don't say yes to every opportunity that comes along when you're creating your schedule. There are some things that are good and there are some things that are great. Make sure you take time to put the great things first. And that leads me to number 2. Schedule your family events in pen. A good friend of mine in ministry recently told me if you don't own your calendar, it will own you. So make sure that you find things that your family likes to do together, put those on your calendar first and make them non-negotiable. Now recognize that there will be busy seasons. There are certain times of the year, especially when it comes to scheduling outreach events or holidays, where life is just going to get crazy and ministry is going to come first for a time. But make sure that you identify those seasons and intentionally schedule some downtime with your family to balance them out. Find something your family enjoys doing together and put that on the calendar as a non-negotiable. Make sure you use your vacation days and for more than just conferences. A friend of mine that was a pastor's kid said the only time that he ever got vacation when he was younger was when his family was going to conferences. Take advantage, though, of the times that are built-in, the built-in timeouts. Pastor's kids retreats, ministry couple retreats, personal or staff retreats. Make sure that you put some downtime on your calendar. Keep work at work. Let your family know that the home is sacred. Especially in part-time ministry, there never seems to be enough time. So the temptation is stronger to just pack up, take it home, and work on it there. Now, keeping work at work or instead of at home can look like many different things. One of those things is your time. Ask yourself, how many phone calls, how many emails am I answering and returning while I'm at home? How much time is spent sitting on the computer taking care of ministry stuff when that time is supposed to be set aside for your family? Another thing you have to keep at work or in a set space is stuff. Especially in children's ministry, craft supplies and game materials multiply quickly. And before you know it, they've taken over your house. I've had multiple times over the years where I've decided to purge all of the ministry stuff out of my home, and I filled my car to capacity. The reality of part-time ministry, especially if you're a church plant or a mobile church, is that you might not have dedicated office space or dedicated time to set aside. So if you do need to bring work home, make sure you create space in your home or you create time in your schedule that is specifically for ministry, and don't let it overflow. If you say that you have 2 hours in the evening to work on answering emails, phone calls, and other computer work, and all of a sudden you've spent 3, it's probably a good idea to take a look at your calendar and fix that. Also, if you say you have a set space in your home, say a closet or an office space, make sure the stuff stays in that area and doesn't overflow. Another thing to do when balancing your ministry and your family life is to let your family serve in areas that appeal to them, but give them the ability to opt out. When I was preparing for this, I asked my now adult daughter, who has gone through this whole thing with us, about what were the things that were most important to her. And this is the number one thing. She says, "Mom, when I needed to opt out, you let me." Now, don't volunteer your kids or your family to do things. Ask them to help. Allow them to serve in areas that fit their talents and interests, even if it isn't necessarily children's ministry. And let them say no or sit this one out. There will come times when this is really important. We want to make sure that we allow our families to join us in ministry, but not to get burnt out. Look for others to equip so your family isn't always the first ask. Now, the last thing to consider is realize that some things will take more time, especially if you are working part-time outside of the church and inside of the church. There are things that are going to take longer than we would like to because we are dividing our time between our family, our ministry, and maybe another job. So sometimes schooling, the things that we are learning to further what we're doing in ministry, that's going to take a little longer. We're not going to be done with a 2-year program in 2 years. Sometimes it'll take longer. Also, building team might take longer. When your attention is divided, you need to give yourself a little bit of leeway to know that just because these things are taking longer doesn't mean that they're not important or that they're not important to you. So don't let your family be what suffers when you're serving the Lord.